Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video we're going to be reviewing the brand new, unique FV214 Conqueror Mark II Premium British Era 2 Heavy Tank for the Western Alliance in the Cold War game mode. And of course, I'm being sarcastic. This tank is a tank that I've seen before. It's a tank that most of you will have seen before. It's basically a reskinned version of the Conqueror Mark I, which is already in the Western Alliance tech tree. They've just changed a few of the statistics and given it a skin so they can earn some more money. Unfortunately, obviously, I'm not a fan of that practice. A lot of you aren't fans of that practice as well. It doesn't mean that this tank's bad. It does play well, and you'll see some good gameplay. There's 3 gameplays for you in the background, and we will talk about the performance of this tank a little bit later on. But yeah, we'll also talk about, the practice of just rehashing a tech tree tank and selling it for gold. Of course, being a premium tank, it earns extra silver, XP and crew XP. In terms of this tank, it earns an extra 55% silver. It earns a 15% XP bonus and a 15% crew XP bonus. But yeah, this tank ranges from 16,600 gold down to 11,350 gold at the base bundle, and that's a lot of money for a tank that you can get, basically for free from grinding. Of course, you get those added bonuses, but this tank is also in many ways inferior to the tech tree tank, so it's a very disappointing release. It would have been nice to have something unique. When Wargaming put their minds to it, they do bring out some pretty cool unique tanks from the sort of prototypes and like the research that they do into it, but sometimes they do drop the ball, like on this one, and just bring out a sort of rehashed tech tree tank, and it's very disappointing, and it just comes across as a money grab. But having said that, of course, if you want to pick it up, that's completely down to you. It's still a very capable tank. It's a very sort of reliable tank in typical British fashion. Maybe I'm a little bit biased being from the UK, but yeah. So we'll go on into the statistics. We'll talk about my commander and equipment setup. We'll talk about how it performs, and yeah, the overall sort of idea of whether this actually should be in the game. As you can see, from my opinion, it's probably already, it shouldn't be. They shouldn't have done this. But it's in here now, so yeah, we'll get on with it, and we'll talk about how it performs. So the Conqueror Mark II, which is this tank as you're seeing in the background, has 2,800 hit points, which is 100 less than the tech tree Mark I, but it does have the same view range at 470 meters. Mobility wise, it's all very similar again, although this does suffer in comparison to the Mark I. This has a 810 horsepower engine, which is 140 less than the Mark I. And it has a 12.46 power to weight ratio, which is 2.1 less than the Mark I. They do both have the same forwards and backwards speeds at 35.4 forwards and 12.9 kilometers an hour backwards, but the traverses are slightly different. So this tank has a 36-degree hull traverse, which is actually 2 degrees better than the Mark I, but it has a 36-degree turret traverse as well, which means that that's 2 degrees slower than the Mark I, so it kind of balances out. This is just ever so slightly more sluggish. I haven't actually played the Mark I yet, but it would probably be quite apparent how much more sluggish this would be, considering the decrease that this has in the horsepower. Armour-wise on the turret, which is pretty much the only kind of armour-wise that's important to know at this stage, they both have 254mm of armour on the front of the turret, 89mm of armour on the sides, and 70 on the rear. It has a little weak cupola on top there that you can hit. It's a very sort of small target to hit, but the whole turret doesn't stand up in Era 2 very well, and you do get penned very frequently. You have to use the extent of your gun depression to get your gun down and make that angle as extreme as possible. But it doesn't hold up to something like, the FV4211, which just appeared in the gameplay in the background. That thing is absolutely crazy compared to this, and yeah, you got to have that tank for free, so I don't know why you would probably pick this tank. In terms of the gun and gun performance, they both have 120mm guns. Unfortunately, this has a slightly lower rounds per minute than the Mark 1. This has an 8.11 rounds a minute, whereas the Mark 1 had a 8.57 rounds a minute, I believe. So yeah, it's ever so slightly different. In terms of the gun, they both deal 400 alpha damage on their standard APDS rounds, and on their HESH rounds they both deal 515 alpha damage, and the penetration is very nice. It's 408 on the standard, 452mm on the premium, and the HESH has 260, which can be very useful, but we'll come on to why it's hard to carry HESH in this tank. And yeah, you can probably guess it's just it's the amount of ammunition that this carries compared to the Mark 1. So the shell velocity is also very nice, 1456 meters a second on the standard, 1491 on the premium, and yeah, it's about half at 778 meters a second on the HESH. So the reload base for the Conqueror Mark II is 7.4 seconds, whereas the Mark 1 is just 7 seconds. This has a 1.7 second aim time, which is just 0.2 better than the Mark 1, but the accuracy is a lot worse. It's 0.2 worse than the Mark 1. This has a 0.3 for accuracy, so for a British gun that's relatively inaccurate, although that obviously can be negated by your commander and your equipment skills. They both have 10 degrees of depression and 15 degrees of elevation on the gun, but unfortunately this only carries 35 rounds, which means that if you penetrated every round and did an average of 400 damage, you would only be able to do 14k damage, which for Era 2 that's not a lot really compared to some of the best players and the sort of damage they put out, especially if you miss a few shells during the battle. And you'll see a replay, I think the final replay in this video, where I do run out of shells, where I could have got my damage total up to just over 10k, maybe even 11k if I had some ammunition in the tank. In terms of DPM, in comparison to the Mark 1, this has a DPM of 3,244 without any equipment or a commander in it, and the DPM of the Mark 1 is 3,428, so yeah, just about a little bit higher. And yeah, it's quite confusing. I would have thought that if they were going to play this kind of card of making a tech tree tank into a premium, they would have made the statistics a lot better in one regard, but they don't seem to have done that. Not sure why. Maybe that's so people don't complain that it's better than the tech tree version, but yeah, why do it in the first place, I guess, is my opinion, and I'll be interested to sort of hear what you all think in the comments below. So in terms of my equipment and my commander setup, on the equipment that I use, I run advanced loader, gun stabilizer, and traction system. Traction system just to try and keep up with the flow of the battle, and you can see in the background it even does struggle to get a sort of round. You get outmaneuvered by a lot of tanks, and it can be quite frustrating, but I use the traction system just to try and help with that, even just a little bit. And the gun stabilizer and the advanced loader is obviously for the DPM and the accuracy. And in terms of my commander, I run Sixth Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Situational Awareness, and Armour Angling. So a very sort of standard heavy tank setup in terms of Cold War, I'd say. Armour Angling, reducing the damage I'm taking, gun handling skills to help the gun handling, Rapid Loading for the DPM, and Sixth Sense and Born Leader, as I always say, I take on every single commander that I have in the game now. So with those statistics, I have a view range of 523 meters, I have a power to weight ratio of 12.46, I go just shy at 40 kilometers an hour forwards now, and 14.29 kilometers an hour backwards. My whole traverse is now just shy of 40 degrees a second, and my turret traverse is actually faster at 41.3 degrees a second. My gun performance has improved with those statistics as well, with the equipment and commander, sorry. I now have a 1.64 aim time, 0.3 accuracy, which is nice, and my base reload now with my commander and equipment setup is 5.75 seconds, which it's nice. It's a good DPM. It's not as good as the standard tech tree, and it's not as good as something like the FV4211, but you can't have it all, I suppose, and it still performs well. But the lack of ammunition really does does bring this tank down in comparison to the Mark 1 and to tanks like the FV4211. So as you can see in the background, that was a relatively good game. Unfortunately, we lost that game, but we did pick up 4 kills, 6.6k damage. We blocked a little bit of damage as well. And yeah, not all in all, it's not too bad. Finished top of our team, get 396 assistance, and block 1510 damage. So you can see it performs well. It makes some nice silver. But yeah, we'll hop on into the second gameplay and we'll talk some more about how this tank performs. So see you there in a second. So we're now into the second replay of the video, and we're here on Fisherman's Bay, and you'll see in all of these replays that this tank does perform well. It's a very powerful tank when you do get the gun singing. It's not as sort of brokenly good as the FV4211, like I said. Something like the Mobat that can come in, deal high alpha, ram you, or things like the sort of T72 AV, isn't it? I think the Eastern Alliance heavy tank that I've just actually got, and I'm grinding my way through now. I mean, that has ATGMs as well, so you know, it's workable. It's probably harder to play if you're a newer player and you're looking for a premium. I mean, you get the FV4211, just play that. That's a lot more powerful. It's a lot more forgiving. The armor's better on the whole, so much better, and the turret armor is so much better. It's got a weak point that's hard to hit, and you know, you got a higher alpha damage, a higher DPM, and it's just an easier tank to play. You'd make a lot more silver with that tank. Having said that, if you're a collector and you like the Conquerors and you want to get this, then you know, I don't want to put you off. I mean, people that buy these tanks are obviously keeping the game alive, but I don't like the idea, like I said in the first replay, of just paying for tanks that I can get for free, which have almost identical statistics in the tech tree, and I think it's just a little bit of a cash grab, and it's obviously happened before in terms of World War II tanks. But not being completely negative, I don't want this to be like a really miserable video. Then, you know, like I said, the unique tanks that I brought out, in terms of like, they've done the research and the prototypes and they bring them out, I think they're really cool. I think some of them are really interesting. Sometimes obviously they get it wrong, and obviously the tanks are buffed or they're nerfed depending on what needs changing. But yeah, I think this one they got it wrong. I'm not sure why they brought it out. It could have been something completely different. Maybe a British tank destroyer premium. I'm not sure. Just something for a bit of variety. There's it seems to be like either it's a lot of light tanks coming to game at once, or a lot of hold down heavies. You get the idea, and yeah, I'm not too sure if it's good for the matchmaker, that kind of thing. I haven't seen many of these around when I've been playing it for the review. Mainly seeing the FV4211 still, which is understandable because it makes a lot of silver, and it is a blast to play. Slightly annoying that there's so many of them in the matchmaker, but not much you can do about that. That will change over time as people sort of move on, the seasons go by, and you not seasons as in the weather, but obviously the seasons in the game. But as that goes by and different tanks come out, the variety will change. So in the background you'll see me just playing this sort of E and F line in the middle here, using the ridge lines to get shots at the tanks that have gone into the town. You'll see that, you know, when you get this gun firing, the damage does rack up nice and quickly, but you run out of ammunition, and we're already down to 20 rounds, and that's the sort of reason you can't carry a lot of the relatively decent Hesh rounds, the lightly armoured sort of light tanks, that kind of thing, which is kind of frustrating. It's obviously a balancing mechanic, but I'm not sure why, because it didn't really need balancing. It's not overpowered. It's definitely not as good as the FV4211, so it's just a bit of a confusing tank in general. But yeah, I'd be really interested to hear what you all have to say regarding this tank. Obviously, you'll see if you're a more experienced player, or you know, you've had a few thousand battles under your belt, you'll be able to do well in this tank. You'll earn some good silver. But yeah, I think there are better tanks out there, and I was kind of hoping for something new to sort of end the season with. It would have been nice to have a British tank destroyer, or maybe even some World War II stuff coming out, you know, for the British invasion season. I'm not too fond of it being like a Cold War only, that kind of thing. I like to have a bit of variety. I appreciate you can't always have what you want, but yeah, that's it. So in this gameplay, we've picked up 4k direct damage already. Only lost sort of about 800, just over 800 hit points. We're slowly racking up damage, and we now outnumber the enemy by a substantial amount. So I'm going to push forward and try and get sort of the last remaining assistance damage by spotting the Centurion 9 at the back, and also trying to put shots into the tanks that are to the right of me, that are still in the town. I'm having trouble, I did have a little bit of trouble shooting that Centurion 9, which with the shell velocity I shouldn't have had trouble with the lead, because I'm kind of used to playing the tank, but it does feel a bit derpy sometimes with the slightly worse accuracy than some of the tanks in Era 2. It's still very good, but it can be a little bit frustrating. So yeah, just watch out for that if you are someone that wants to pick up this tank. Yeah, I'm a bit not cautious, because things need calling out when they happen, but I don't want to put anyone off getting it. If you love Conquerors, then by all means get it. If you're a collector, then get it. You'll still enjoy it. It's just, yeah, it's not as good as it should have been. It should have been a different tank anyway. So in that second replay, we finished with 6.1k direct damage, 1500 assistance, 2 kills, 1529 experience, and we finish MVP, which is really nice, and make 375,000 silver. So we're going to head on into the next game where I run out of ammunition, and you'll see how annoying it is to run out of ammunition when you could have increased your damage even more. So I'll head on over there and I'll catch you in a second. So we're now into the third and final replay of the video, and we're here on Fredvang, and you'll see me play the hold down gameplay that this tank does well with. As I've alluded to in the last two replays, it won't do as well as the Conqueror Mark 1. It won't do as well as the FV4211 or the Mobat, that kind of thing, but it's still very capable. And if you're especially if you're a more experienced player, or at least if you're sort of used to the hold down heavy tank type gameplay, you'll see here, even with the traction system, that I'm relatively slow getting into position on this soft terrain. I'm struggling to sort of get up to my top speed, just below 40 kilometers an hour. Now I'm on the downslope, I'm getting there a little bit quicker, but I'm heading over here on Fredvang to this hill in this sort of D6 location, and this is a really nice position. You can defend sort of north, south, east and west. On an encounter, the encounter circle, capture circle, it's just to the left of me now, over the back of this hill, and it's a really good place to defend from, especially if you've got good gun depression like the Conqueror Mark II has. You can use the ridgelines here to shoot out down towards the south and over towards like the west of the map, and you can also go around the back in here and shoot towards the north. And it's a really good position. Be wary that it's contested quite hotly now. I think a lot of heavy tanks like to go up here, especially platoons of heavy tanks like to take the hill. Of course, we've learnt from Star Wars that the high ground is the best, and yeah, it does work very well, especially in tanks like this. Fortunately, an ATGM either misses us or our teammates that's just ahead of us. But I'm going to try and get a few shots in on the way up to my final sort of position I want to get into to overlook the battlefield. And you can see there are three heavies just to the right of me now, just behind me, directly behind me on that hill, and they're spotting up the middle, and I want to get to the top of this hill, and I want to be able to shoot what they're spotting, and just poke up, get a shot and pull back down, use the typical hold down gameplay to sort of stay safe. I don't want to rely on this whole armour at all, and even the turret armour I struggle to rely on at all in this tank. You do get sort of some nice ricochets, but it's nothing compared to the FV4211, which, yeah, that's almost impenetrable. Even the cupola is really hard to hit. On this tank, you got to kind of wiggle like I was doing there. Your gun sometimes make it hard to hit the cupola, make it so that they ricochet off the sort of angled side of your turret. It's a relatively sort of narrow turret from the front, I guess. It's got the cheek sticking out, but if you're poking up like I am every time you're reloaded and getting shots off, then you make yourself a harder target, and you can see the damage racking up as we're getting the shots as the tanks are getting spotted. In terms of the ammo difference between the Mark 1 and the Mark 2, so this has, it was 35 rounds of ammunition. I think I said, I'll just check that for you, I'm pretty sure it was. It's 35 rounds. The Mark 1 has 50 rounds, so 15 more rounds, which is a substantial amount of damage more you can do in the Mark 1. I'm not sure why the ammo loadout's so low in this. It's quite frustrating, and you'll see in this battle, although it doesn't, spoiler alert, sort of affect the outcome of the battle, it affects my personal damage outcome and the amount of silver and the amount of XP that I could have got. So in the time that I've been waffling on, we've managed to pick up 3.6k damage and 427 assistance. Little bit of a misplay there when I'm just showing my side, but I was just turning around to go to the other side to see if I can spot anything coming up, and maybe we could test the hill where I'm from. I'm always trying to scout out in the distance when I'm panning the camera around to see if I can see tanks in the distance with the True Vision system. And we take an ATGM to the side there. Fortunately, it didn't damage any modules or set us on fire or damage our ammo rack. I'm not quite sure where it came from, but I'm going to go down and help my tanks take out this FV4211, and I'm also going to be wary of that light tank or heavy tank to the side of the ATGMs. Or medium tank, I'm not sure why I said it was a certain class, but I'm just going to be wary, so if I see a missile coming in, or an ATGM, yeah, I can try and evade it by going down the hill or up the hill, depending on where it's coming from. So I'm just trying to let my teammates know by pinging them out that there is an opponent out there in the distance, and maybe someone could try and spot if they're able to. But I'm going to try and stay on the hill, because I've got the high ground, I've got a good position here, and it was about this moment I thought, oh crap, I'm going to be set on fire from the back with an ATGM, but I think that BMP there auto-aimed. Unfortunately for us, he's kind of, I thought he went AFK, but you'll see the turret moving a bit. I think he's just so annoyed that they missed that shot on me that he kind of is just sitting here now waiting to reload. I'm just going to keep nudging in the hope that I do a little bit of damage, maybe track the BMP, and I'm just going to put round after round into this BMP, and although it's an easy kill because it's just sat in front of me, you'll see how quickly you can get a kill with this relatively good DPM. I run combat rations on this tank to help with the DPM. You'll see there that it can be quite derpy. That I felt like that was aimed okay, and it still managed to derp into the ridgeline. I'd like to blame Wargaming's ridgelines there, but I think that was just the gun. And now I'm asking for help because I'm coming up against a tank that has more health than me and more armour and a better DPM, and I'm also being shot in the distance from that M60. We get a nice snapshot there using the auto-aim as we're backing up. The reload speed of the traction system does help in situations like this, and as you can see, in the time that we've backed up and we're defending, I tried to track the FV4211, and there we go, we track him on the hill there, hoping that our teammates put shots into him. I feel a bit sorry for this heavy tank that's come up to help me. I'm going to come up to try and finish that tank off with that FV4211. I think he did a Mr. President and went in front and blocked my shot, but that Centurion then gets killed anyway, and now we're coming up to the side of this FV, and he gets taken out, and we've picked up 8.6k damage, 643 assistance, and it was about now, I think I looked at my ammo count, and I've only got one shell left, so I'm going to try and make this count and get one more shot of damage in. Aiming up on this M60, we get it in. Unfortunately, it's a low roll, as you do in Cold War quite often, and letting my teammates know I'm out of ammo, and if there was something near me, I'll try and ram it to get a bit of extra damage, but all I can do now is kind of either be a spotter or try and ram something, but fortunately for us that light tank gets taken out, and that was the best tank that I've had, best game in this tank that I've had so far. We finished MVP with just shy of 9k direct damage, 643 assistance, only a first class, 1554 base experience points. But yeah, we also make a nice amount of silver there, just shy of 500,000 silver, and it does perform well. I'm not sure why they put this tank in the game, but hey ho. I hope you enjoyed this replay. I hope you're all having a great week. I hope you all have a nice weekend. Until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.